This is Gianmarc Manzione for ActionBowlers.com. It's my tremendous pleasure to welcome to the show today one of the greatest action bowling legends of all time, Mike Limongello. Mike is that rare breed of action bowler who went on to enjoy great success on the PBA Tour as well. He was inducted into the PBA Hall of Fame in 1994, and among his proudest accomplishments on tour is a U.S. Open title in 1971. Incidentally, that was the inaugural U.S. Open, which prior to that had been known as the All-Star. Known affectionately as Lemon to many who knew him back in his bowling days, Mike also won the PBA National Championship in the same year that he won the U.S. Open. And by the way, he defeated two Hall of Famers on his way to those titles, Dave Davis and Tita Semez. Overall, Mike captured 6 PBA Tour titles. Thanks for your time today, Mike. How you doing?
Doing great, John. Nice to hear from you. It's been a while.
And it's great to hear from you again as well, Mike. Thanks for your time today. So let me get right into it. You know, it's been some time since the golden days of action bowling. I mean, at this point, we're going back nearly 50 years. So maybe it would be best to begin just by asking you to help those who don't understand just what we mean by the phrase action bowling. What exactly action bowling was, Mike?
Well, what would happen was we would all go out late at night. Myself and a couple of friends of mine, and we'd go around almost every night of the week. They would have some place to go, either on Long Island where I lived or Brooklyn, Yonkers. Every night of the week it was somewhere different, and we would go out. And usually the action would start right after the leagues were over, somewhere around midnight. And everybody knew about it, and everybody would just go to that place for that particular night, and they would have their best bowlers wherever we were. Everybody would just match up against each other. Whoever wanted to bowl for money, we were ready for action.
And Mike, it's my understanding that there was kind of a territorial nature to the action back then. If you were from Brooklyn or Manhattan or the Bronx, you were representing your borough as much as you were representing yourself. Isn't that right?
Yeah, well, they would have, everybody knew what section they were from and who had their best bowlers, and they heard of me. I was from the island, and they would try to match me up with someone from their area, the best guy they would have, say, from Yonkers or Brooklyn. And then we would go in, they would set it up in that we would meet them at a certain place, a certain night of the week. And everybody from their area would bet on their guy, and our guys would bet on me, and that's how the money started. But there was a lot of money back in those days. Everybody would pool their money and bet on whoever they liked best, I guess.
Right. The money certainly is an important part of this whole tale. You hear a lot of people toss around figures about how much money was thrown around back in the action bowling circles in that time. But maybe you can tell us, just how much money was at stake at times in the action back then, Mike?
When I first started out, being 17 years old, most of the time we would bowl for, a few hundred a game, 200-300 a game, like that. But as it got better and better each year, I mean, the money really started. More and more people would just go to watch the matches, and everybody would bet. So they would just collect the money in the back, and everybody would bet. And by the time I was 17, 18 years old, before I even went on tour, I mean, I was bowling for anywhere from 1,000 or 5,000. So you could make quite a bit of money if you were good enough.
And $5,000 was a lot of money to make in, say, 1963 on a bowling match, Mike. So, what does it take for you to show up in a clutch moment in the 10th frame when maybe you need all 3 strikes to take that kind of money home? What does it take to perform in that moment as a clutch action player, Mike?
Well, I learned from an early age, to bowl for a lot of money. So I guess it was just a question of, I learned how to control my emotions when I was in a pressure situation. Don't forget, there are times that I didn't perform as well, say, when I was first starting out, because I wasn't used to the pressure. But once I learned what I had to do, you weren't really thinking of the money. I mean, when you need to have to strike out in the 10th frame, you don't think, well, if I strike out, I'm going to win 2,000. You gotta get up there and say, okay, what am I doing here to make sure I get this double in the tent? You know, what I would do is just concentrate on what I had to do to make a good shot. You know, whether it was my first step, get my timing right, you know, make sure I did everything right. I would, you know, kind of block everything out, and I would zone into what I had to do. After a while, I got pretty good at zoning myself in and cleared everything else, you know, as far as the pressure. I really never came into effect on. I was lucky that way.
And my understanding of the action bowling scene back then, Mike, is that it wasn't actually just about the bowling. It was really about the action, and the action took many different forms at that time, Mike. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, you went out and you bowled for money, but it was also a lot of fun. I mean, you were hanging around with you were going to different places each night, but you had your buddies with you, and I traveled with maybe 7 or 8 of my best friends, and it was just a fun night. You know, we all had a good time, you know, win or lose, but of course we had a better time if we won, but it was just so much fun. We couldn't wait to do it. You know, just couldn't wait to do it every night. It's fun, it was money, you know, it's just a way of life for us. You never got tired of it.
Right. I mean, from what I understand, it was a rare day when you guys went home before sunrise. Is that correct?
Yeah, we used to start around midnight, and we always bowled till 7, 8 in the morning.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, you mentioned the buddies that you traveled with, the guys you bowled with back then, and a lot of times when I do interviews with action bowling legends like yourself, I like to name specific people from those days who were kind of notorious action players and ask for some memories about them. But what I'd like to do here instead, Mike, is maybe just let you tell us about the characters that you bowled with or bowled against back then, whom you remember most vividly all these years later. Who were some of the most interesting characters you encountered in your action bowling days, Mike?
There's a lot of different guys. Ernie Slagle, he started me out. You know, I bowled against him, but then we started to bowl doubles partners together because he was really good. He was from the Yonkers area. But he was very flamboyant. You know, he's running around lanes a lot. And he would really try to get under the skin of the guys he bowled against. And I would just get up a bowl, you know, and try to, you know, take advantage of the other person like he could. So Ernie was he was a great action bowler too. Just different guys in different situations. You know, just had guys from Brooklyn. They had their gang, and they you know, it's just hard to explain how they all were. But everybody had, from every section we went to, everybody had their character guy that stood out.
Mm-hmm. And one of the characters that people have heard a lot about from those days, Mike, is a character by the name of Iggy Russo. What can you tell us about Iggy? He was quite a character back then.
I don't know if I should talk that much about him. I'm sure he's not around anymore, but
yeah, I actually looked into that, Mike, and I was able to track Iggy down to some kind of retirement community in the state of Florida. And it seems at that point in his life he was already into his 90s. And from what I was able to find, unfortunately, it seems that Iggy has passed away.
I knew he was about 25 years. The thing about Iggy, he was a sharp character. He was very interesting. You didn't know. He could bowl good when he wanted to. You weren't sure, but you never knew for sure if he was bowling to win or not. You know.
Right, that definitely is Iggy's legacy, is as a so-called dumper, someone who was betting against himself and bowling badly on purpose to make some easy dough. But Iggy also is remembered for the heart attack that he faked in order to escape a rather shady situation he had gotten himself into. Can you tell us about that night, Mike?
Oh yeah, I was there that night. I was there. That was in Brooklyn. I think it was in Bill Hodges Lane. And we were watching the match. He was bowling somebody. They were bowling for a lot of money. And what I heard after it was all over was that Iggy was getting up in the 10th frame, and he needed a strike to win the match, or Mark to win the match, but he had all of his money bet on the other guy. Okay, now he was going to lose the game, but when he heard there was some unsavory characters that were betting on him, and what happened was he couldn't take the chance of losing, because he didn't know what was going to happen to him. So he got up to throw the ball, and he just dropped the ball and grabbed his chest and faked that he was having a heart attack. They call the ambulances, everything.
And another character that I actually, this is someone that I had the great pleasure of getting to know and become friends with over the last couple of years, is named Kenny Barber. What do you remember about Kenny Barber, Mike?
Kenny was a lot of fun. Kenny liked to have a good time, and just, when he was bowling, he was just out there having fun and trying to get the best of the bowler that he was bowling against. He would do anything in the world to he would slow you up. I remember one time he was bowling me, and I was beating him pretty good. About three or four games I beat him, and then all of a sudden he started to believe he was having trouble with his bowling ball, and he just held me up like he just held the match up. I was taking 5 minutes to throw every ball. Before you know it, I just got all out of whack from not being able to bowl my regular steady match, And all of a sudden I got out of whack a little bit, and he started beating me. And I realized what he was doing, And then I don't know how the match wound up. I kind of spoke about even, and I quit. I don't want to bowl this anymore. Yeah, I knew he was doing it. He was a good guy. We wound up being really good friends, and he was a good guy. A lot of fun to be with.
And a little earlier, Mike, I mentioned that you're that rare breed of action player who not only achieved success as an action bowler, but also went on to have terrific success on the PBA Tour. You mentioned Ernie Schlegel earlier. I guess he's another guy that made that successful transition from action to PBA Tour. You yourself won 2 majors in 1 year, PBA Hall of Famer, won 6 titles overall. But more often than not, the PBA Tour lifestyle didn't appeal to the action bowler. Why was that, Mike?
Yeah, well, they're both so completely different, I was action bowling, you're out every night and you bowl in different places and stuff like that for, fast money. And it's one particular, we were very good friends. We had a good time. We could play cards a lot at night, We just became like brothers, We just traveled, for the 12, 13 years that I did it. I loved that lifestyle just as much as I did the action.
Speaking of your PBA Tour career, Mike, there's one favorite story of mine that you've got about winning, I think that, I don't know which title it was, but it was a really big, maybe one of the majors, that you won having borrowed the bowling ball you used in the tournament from another player about a quarter of the way in. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the U.S. Open.
Right.
I was bowling, I don't know, it was like 400 or 500 bowlers in that tournament. In quite a few qualifying games. 32 qualifying to get to the finals. But I started out really bad. I had a couple of bowling balls of my own, and nothing was working for me, and I just didn't know what to do. It was like halfway through the tournament, I was like 200th place. And I went in the paddock, and Harry Smith was in there, and he had like 4 or 5 bowling balls of his own. I said, Harry, you mind if I tried one of your bowling balls? He goes, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I picked up one of his, fit pretty good. I said, I'm going to try this. Yeah, go ahead, use it. I picked it up. I started using it, and the thing worked great. I just kept bowling good and wind up winning the tournament with it. I did that a couple of times.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
2 or 3 times I used somebody else's ball. I always felt, I always felt that, you have your own equipment, but back in those days it wasn't too much as far as equipment goes. But I always knew there was a ball for each condition, And a lot of times the equipment that I had wasn't working. I knew if maybe somebody else had the right ball, the right weight in it, or something like that I could we're helping out. And three times it is. Sports that way.
Well, I have to believe you're the only bowler to ever win the U.S. Open with a ball borrowed from somebody else halfway in.
Probably. Yeah, for sure.
Now, what was it like for you, Mike, as a kid, to be competing against some of the true greats of the sport at that time in the sport's history, in their prime? I think specifically of names like Dick Weber, for instance.
Yeah, well, that was like amazing experience. Like the first time, the first year went out. Well, actually, the first couple of tournaments. And actually, the first time I bowled in was in Canada. It was a really, really tough shot. A lot of oil, and I didn't bowl that good, but I did cash. I cashed my first tournament. But the second tournament that I bowled in, started bowling good, and I made the final. And the first 3 or 4 guys that I bowled, the first guy I bowled was Dick Hoover, and the next guy I bowled was Carmen Salvino, then Harry Smith. Okay, and then about 2 games later after that, I bowled Dick Weber. And I'm up there in the lanes and I go, wow, look at this. I'm bowling against guys that I just last year. This is my first year on tour. This last year, I was watching these guys on TV, and so someday I'm going to be, out there, and and now I'm out there and actually bowling against these guys, and I did good. I did good the first tournament. And I wind up. I beat Salvino and I beat Blue, and it would come down to the last game for me to get on TV, and I'm bowling Dick Weber, okay? And he comes into the 10th frame, and whoever wins makes the show. And they took four players to the show, and whoever wins would make the show. Whoever loses, it'll be the ultimate. So I get up in the 10th frame, and I'm down 5 pins. I get up in the 10th frame, I go first, and I throw 2 in the 10th. And now I'm up 5 pins. Now Dick Weber's got to get up. He's got a double to beat me. And he gets up and he just boom, boom, boom through 3 perfect strikes. And he beat me by 5 pins. And I wound up being the ultimate. But it was, even though I lost, it was like the best feeling of my life that I actually got up and didn't fear the pressure. And I did my part. But he got up and he did exactly what I thought he would do. I saw how great he was, he finally beat me. But I learned a lot from it. I learned that, it was okay to finish as the ultimate. Because I got beat by the best. I got beat by the best, but I hung in there with him. That was a great experience. A great thrill. It's a good losing story. It's a good losing story. Most people say about their winning stories, but that was a good losing story.
Yeah, that must have been amazing for you as a kid. I mean, to be watching these guys on TV, greats like Dick Weber and Carmen Salvino and Dick Hoover, and then to find yourself contending against a Dick Weber at that age for a show.
Yeah, I was only 19. Yeah, I was 19. It was my second tournament, so that was great. It was really.
Now, Mike, obviously Dick was one of the greats on the PBA tour, but of course you contended with some of the greats as an action bowler as well, and there were plenty of great players that you faced off with even before you went on tour when you were just a 16, 17-year-old kid. Who were some of the players, Mike, whom you thought were true greats as action bowlers, the guys that you remember to this day as some of your toughest competitors in the action back then?
Well, it was 3 or 4 that were really, really good. I bowled again. We had really great matches, back and forth. First one, I would say the toughest guy I ever bowled was Richie Hornreich. And Richie was about a year or so younger than me. And when we first hooked up, I was only 17. He was like 15 and a half. So we were really pretty young. And he was good. We would bowl matches where, and I'll tell you, like guys like Richie, Ralph Engen, Ernie Schlegel, I'm trying to think of some other names. But, those 3 in particular are guys that you wouldn't break them. You just, whoever got wrapped was going to lose. You put put certain pressure. Other guys you could bowl, you could just keep putting pressure on them, and they would fold up a little bit, you know. Or other guys like Ralph and Richie, you know, you got to beat them. They're not going to give in to you either. And it was a lot of fun bowling guys like that too. And you want to learn, and that's how you learn to bowl to become a really good pressure shooter. Is to bowl matches like that, where when you got to get up, you got to throw 2 in the 10 to win the match, and you know to win the money, and you'd be bowling for cash. And that's how you learn to be good under pressure. So when I went out on tour, I was already groomed for pressure. You know, it wasn't like, even though I was bowling Dick Weber and Colin Salvino and guys like that, and I was able to handle the pressure against them, even though they were the greatest defense of TV. I was still able to handle it because I was already groomed for it. So that really helped me. I was fortunate that way.
And Mike, is there anything I haven't asked or haven't mentioned that you think people really should know about your action bowling days?
I don't know. Well, you know, all I could say is that it was just the greatest time of life. You know, it's just so much fun. Every day I couldn't wake up. I couldn't wait to wake up and you know, go to wherever the action was going to be. You know, with my friends and you know, try to win a lot of money. I mean, it was just so much fun. You know, it was the best time I ever had.
And lastly, Mike, I just wanted to ask about your health. I know some people in the bowling community were a little concerned not too long ago, but I also understand that now everything is fine. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had a little problem, a little lung problem, but everything's fine. That was 2 years ago. I had surgery, and everything's good right now. I'm all cleared up, so it's fine.
That's great to hear, Mike. I know a lot of people will be pleased to hear that everything's cool now.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, Mike, thanks so much for your time today. It's been fascinating as always. I really appreciate the opportunity you've given me to bring your voice out into the public again after so long.
You're welcome, John. Keep me posted.
I sure will.